Yep, I'm good.
Coach Jake Myers, thank you so much for coming on the Christian Coach podcast. You've given us some great recommendations in the past already of guests, but I'm so thankful that you're here with us today. As you know, our first question is always, what does it mean to you to be a Christian coach?
I'm just excited. Every time I listen to the podcast, I hear the question. So I've been answering this. Every time I hear you ask it, I always answer it myself. So I'm kind of fired up to get to, speak my mind on it. So to me, it's just be different. As it talks about in Matthew, like we're the salt of the earth. Like when you taste salt, it's salt, right? It's there, and so it's either making its presence known, or it's bringing out the flavors of something else. So, I just want my interactions with my athletes to just be different. Like when Coach Myers coaches me, it's just different. Like he says the same things, but just my interactions are just different. And he just, I feel good. I still get everything I need to from an X's and O's strength and conditioning standpoint, but there's just, when I interact with him, there's something different, and I think being different then kind of leads to some curiosity. Why is he different? And like I talked, this is my first time at a religious affiliated school. So I can kind of be a little bit more open, so to speak, and just kind of leaving other hints around, wearing the He Would Love First bracelet, having my Bible in my office on my desk, like, once athletes start to kind of put all the pieces together, and then they kind of start to formulate, and then they come ask me, and then obviously, then I can kind of really dive deep into it. But to be a Christian coach is just be different, and then make them wonder why.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good call. Is they need to be able to almost like taste it, the salt, right? They need to feel it. They need to. There's a lot of coaches answer with the aroma of Christ, right? It smells different. Like it's just like you can tell there's something there. You mentioned this is your first religious affiliated school that you worked for. How has your coaching philosophy changed now that you're able to be a little bit more open about your faith?
Yeah, so I think, my coaching philosophy, and it's really kind of turned into a life philosophy as I've kind of expanded it, is humility, consistency, and ownership. Like those are my three pillars. That's what every day is on every workout that I print out for my athletes. Like those are my three things. And, I got them not from Christian books, but I kind of got these ideas from them, and I kind of try to boil it down. What's the simplest way to be successful for a team culture? And I kind of came down to those three things. And if you have those three things, you're going to be successful in life, in athletics, whatever it may be. But then kind of always everything that I do, kind of looking at it and checking it against the Bible. Is that biblical? Is it supported? And I kind of came to those three things, and I'm like, I see it in a verse here, in a devotional here, and I'm like, this is extremely biblical. My coaching philosophy is extremely biblical, but it's not openly, in the case of if I'm at a public university or something like that. So, I think obviously the easy answer is Jesus was the greatest example of humility, consistency, and ownership. I mean, we sin, and he takes the ownership by going to the cross for us. Like, if that's not ownership, then I've missed the boat.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So, and obviously humility. I mean, just a carpenter, a blue collar worker, with the power of the Almighty, and and he's just walking around like a normal guy. So it's just one of those things where I think my coaching philosophy was kind of developed separately, but then I started to kind of cross-reference it, hey, does this make sense with my faith? And then it kind of just, the Bible just supported it. And I can kind of, there's so many Bible verses that can support each pillar of that. And that's what really kind of, for me, it kind of really made me kind of even more buy into it, because I can support it no matter what aspect of my life. It's, straight coaching, but it also is a great segue for reasons why I think humility is great. Jesus. Reasons why I think consistency's a key to success, Jesus.
Yeah.
Ownership, Jesus. So it's a great segue without kind of being directly in your face for maybe an athlete who's in a different part of their walk.
True. That's a great answer. Did you always want to be a strength and conditioning coach?
I always wanted to be a coach, and it just kind of seemed just natural. I didn't really ever put too much thought into it. I just kind of always assumed coaching. But kind of, again, you look back and you're like, yeah, all the signs were there with that. Strength conditioning was kind of where I needed to go. But my biggest reason for choosing strength and conditioning was to affect, the second, third, fourth string, coming up as a football player, and not always being focused on, who's starting, who's playing the most snaps. As a strength coach, sport coaches, they kind of have to, they're out there to win. But strength coaches, everybody who walks through the doors of the weight room, like, you're getting coached the same no matter your the string that you play. So, and I was a weight room guy in college, so I like the weight room, and it's a passion of mine. But at the same time, I feel strength conditioning kind of just get to see the athletes a little bit out of their element sometimes. And I'm not tied to one sport. I love working with athletes of all sports because, they kind of balance me out too. I'm not all up and hype all the time, not all cerebral and individual training all the time. So I kind of get a mix and kind of keep it fresh every day.
That's good. How did you get into sports? You mentioned you play football. Give us a little bit of background on your childhood and growing up, and how that affected you now as a coach.
Yeah, I mean, it was just growing up. I played, before college, I played football, baseball, wrestling. I threw javelin and shot put. So kind of just athletics was always kind of just part of who I was. Natural inclination towards it. And pursued football in college. That was my passion. That's what really lit the fire in me, as a person. And so then, like I said, and that kind of making the connection, hey, the weight room affects how you play. And then it, again, that's where kind of my passions kind of converged, and then continued to go towards the weight room route, and just kind of always enjoying explaining and the teaching side of coaching. Was just always something kind of comes natural and natural inclination to do. So.
What do you think is the role of the strength and conditioning coach within the larger program, right? And besides helping them get stronger, right, and fitter, what do you think is your role in strength and conditioning coaches' roles as in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, is meet them where they're at, and a lot of times as freshmen too, like you might have seen a tennis recruit, you saw them play in person, or you saw their highlight tape or film or whatever. A lot of times as a strength coach, we don't get to see them until they show up on campus. Yep. Workout number one. So we got a lot coming in the door. So we're going to meet them where they're at as a freshman, but every single day, to some degree, you're going to get a little variance of each athlete. So meet them where they're at and kind of see them in a different light. I have no say in their playing time or their spot, 1 through 6 in the lineup. Like, I have no say in all that. So it's just kind of seeing the athlete in a different light. I tell our staff, I'm a basketball coach in charge of strength and conditioning. I'm the football coach in charge of strength and conditioning. Our goal is to integrate as much as we can into each sport. So that way, what I do in the weight room complements what's going on in the field and the court. And it's not just, hey, go to the weight room, work out, and then come back and we'll do, sport work. So we try to integrate as much as we can. But at the same time, we're seeing the kids in a different light. And they don't come to college to lift weights. They come to play their sport and kind of finding our role to just optimizing that.
it usually ends up that the ones who do fall in love with the weight room are the ones who are performing at the
Yeah.
highest level.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal, is to, just create the buy-in in the weight room. Yeah, you didn't come here to lift weights, but we can still have fun. We can still have fun in the weight room. So, that's kind of the thing. No matter what their view on the weight room is, we still need to develop one way or another.
Yeah. I think, the weight room is important. It builds muscle, but I think it also builds character, right? And it reveals character too. I think because there you're pushed to your physical limit, your mental limit, without technically seeing the results of X's and O's,
Exactly.
So if you're still bought in after suffering through that physical challenge and you continue to do it, that shows that you really have it, that you have it in you to be successful.
Exactly.
And when you go through those things, you kind of get more vulnerable and you open up to the strength and conditioning coach. Mm-hmm. I'm very jealous of our strength and conditioning coach because he has some great conversations with our players that I necessarily don't get to have, because here, even though we do have a personal relationship, it's different, right? Because they know I'm in charge of their playing time. I'm in charge, even though I love them to death, and that'll never change. It's a little different of a relationship. And I think I know of some coaches, and that happens with a lot of Olympic sports, that think the strength and conditioning coaches are going to hurt their players, or they don't know the training. And sometimes that's the case, right? Maybe there's not one that is well trained, but I think it's very valuable that time in the gym consistently to build character.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as strength and conditioning coaches, I'm very cognizant and aware that there's a stereotype of strength coaches, right? We see it all over social media, whatever's being put out there. So as a strength and conditioning professional, I need to be aware of the stereotype that if you don't know anything else, you think this is what I am. And I need to make sure I break that in order, I'm not that. I'm me, and I'm going to treat your athletes, for optimal performance. I'm going to get the best out of them. I don't care what the stereotype is. I'm there. I'm a tennis coach in charge of strength, in charge of their physical development.
Yeah, that's great. I saw it on your Twitter account. You talked about James 1:2, and before we started recording, you showed me your tattoo. What is the meaning behind that verse, and why is it meaningful to you?
To me, it's just, having gone through, some, as we all have kind of our story and our struggles, kind of some mental health issues, just very hard on myself and whatnot. But the whole consider it pure joy when you face adversity, it's just standing eye to eye, looking adversity eye to eye, and really saying, is that all you got? Is kind of the thing. And that's why I have it on my forearm where it's very visible. If I'm going through a frustrating day, this, that, and the other, consider it great joy. Because when you get through this, you're going to be so much better. Again, I could really tie that back into the weight room too. But, when you go through adversity, I've always, when just little nagging bad things always happen, I kind of celebrate them, because something good's coming on the back end of this. It's not going to be bad forever. Again, I might wait longer than I wish for that good thing to come through. But James 1:2 is just kind of, for me, a mindset of, all right, adversity is going to happen. You can't avoid it. But take joy in it, because if you're having adversity, then it means you're pushing yourself. It means you're kind of stretching your comfort level, outside your comfort zone. And that's where God's going to grow you, right? If you stay in your comfort zone, it's just, you don't experience anything like that, right? So, the adversities that I've gone through professionally and personally, on the backside of those, it's just that to overcome them, it just feels so much better. The greater the adversity, the greater the joy and peace and relief on the back end of that. So it's just kind of a mindset. You stare adversity square in the face and be like, all right, cool. Because what's behind you is what I'm getting at. I'm getting right through you for that.
Yeah. And it's coming from, probably Jesus's half brother, right? So we probably should listen and try to abide. I think the book of James alongside the book of Philippians, to me, are two of the best books in the Bible. I think James is that book is so practical, right? He just giving you orders, just giving you commands. Like it almost feels like it's his last hour on earth, and he's just teaching. He's just trying to tell you as much as he knows, from living right next to Jesus for all those years.
Exactly.
It's a great book. My next question. You mentioned a little bit about mental health. We don't have to go into details of your personal story if you don't want to, but now it's a big issue here with athletes coming up, right? And even adults now, and COVID exposed a lot, right? What are some of the things that you've seen being done that do help these young kids now with mental health? Because it's a big issue that we all have to deal with now. Part of the recruiting process. Now with tennis, we saw Osaka quit the tournament because she didn't want to give press conferences. What are some of the things that you've seen being done that help athletes with mental health issues?
I think just the biggest thing is just it's okay to talk about it now. It used to be just such a
stigma,
taboo, and it's still hard. It's so abstract. A physical illness. Hey, you have these symptoms. Oh,
an X-ray exposes it too.
It's so cut and dry, black and white, to where mental health, and it's so individual based too. The same event could happen and it's going to affect me different than it affects you. So, but I think the biggest thing that I think we're changing, it's okay. It's good to talk about it. But the biggest thing that I've found is like accepting the feelings or whatever's causing your mental health. Like, all right, I'm mad. Why am I mad? Embrace it, like be mad for whatever, a minute, 2 minutes, whatever you need to do. Because I think if you try to suppress it, and again, I'm preaching to myself on this one hard too. When you try to suppress those emotions, okay, you suppress it that time, but eventually it's going to build. And then, it just all comes out at once. So I think being able to embrace, hey, I'm anxious right now. Why am I, let me dive deeper. All right, what's happened today that would cause me to be anxious? And just trying to embrace it instead of kind of run away and hide. I'm anxious. Oh, let me go do something to take my mind off of it. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing. And just, going through my own battle with it. Again, I think it's one of those things you never win. It's just a constant, you learn how to fight better. But I've had a lot of great conversations with athletes and being able to share, my vulnerabilities to them. Hey, like I've been where you've been. I haven't been where you are, but I've been similar. I've had my own battle. This is how I've done. And at the end of the day, it's one of those things. I know the feeling, but hey, we got to keep pushing forward. We can't just roll over and die. We got to keep moving forward, type of thing. So it's kind of opened a lot of doors for some good conversations.
Yeah, we just read a book called "Get Out of Your Head" by Jenny Allen with the team, and she talks a lot about mental health and loneliness, and how we think we're the only ones facing that problem, right? Or I'm lonely. And our mind and, Satan tells us, oh, that means you're not right. You should be apart from people. Just be by yourself.
Yeah.
You're lonely and you tell yourself, I need to be by myself to figure this out. There's something wrong with me. And then you be by yourself and then you feel more lonely.
Exactly.
And when you're able to speak out and us as coaches can have that open dialogue, and we can, promote that kind of dialogue, it shows that every one of us is going through something. It might not be the same exact thing, but we all have issues. And sometimes social media just portrays incredible moments, right? Every time it's just perfect life. And we look at ourselves, we're like, man, my life sucks compared to this. I woke up, sunrise was terrible in my place. This girl is here with this guy is doing it in the beach, But it's an issue I think that coaches need to start taking more seriously.
I think it's important for athletes because as coaches, our athletes kind of look up to us, just based on our position. Your position kind of is set for that. So they kind of think, oh, they've got their life figured out. Everything's perfect for them. So by telling them like, you thought I was perfect, but hey, that day I was going through some stuff that day and you had no idea, or this, that, and the other. So I think it's kind of, it's great for our athletes to kind of understand,
Yeah.
It's not always what we portray too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Coach Myers, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We like to pray for you at the end. So how can we be praying for you?
Biggest thing for me is just, obviously guidance and wisdom just for my day-to-day life and interactions with my athletes. The biggest thing is just to see the moments that God's kind of just give me a soft toss. Hey, this athlete's primed. Hey, bring me up here. Just have the vision to see that like, hey, this athlete wants me to witness to him, or, wants me to say something to speak into their life. And not just kind of not realize, make the most of the opportunity, as long as, if I can make the most of the opportunity, that's why I'm in the position that I am.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this talk with Coach Myers. Thank you for his leadership there at St. Francis and everywhere he's been. Lord, thank you that he wants to make an impact in the lives of the athletes and the people that he comes in contact with for your glory and for your kingdom, Father. Lord, I pray that you give him opportunities, that you show him explicitly who you want him to have conversations with, and who he can share your message with. And Lord, the weight room is such a perfect environment for coaches to speak life into their athletes. And I pray that you put him in many, many positions where he can speak life into his athletes. Lord, thank you for this conversation, and may it always be glorifying to you in everything we say and do. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Coach, my last question is, I saw that you have a young child on Twitter. Is that your first one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
What have you learned about yourself since you've had the baby? Is it baby boy, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh man. I don't know.
With my first child, I learned I liked my sleep more than I thought.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. He's relatively speaking sleeps pretty good. He's always slept maybe just once a night, got up in the middle of the night. I think the biggest thing is, especially as he's starting to pick up on stuff, like someone's always watching.
Yeah.
Like I always got to be, mindful of what I'm doing, and make sure that I'm dad at home. I'm not Coach Myers at home. I want him to see me in a different light than what my athletes were. But it is kind of, it's just hard to even put into words, where there's no off. You don't, when I leave the weight room, all right, I'm done for the day. Where there's no done for the day, being a dad. So, that's been a learning experience. Hey, he's relying on you for everything.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of hard to just kind of hard question to answer. I guess
it is
learning everything, and just obviously learning when he's not feeling well, when's he hungry. Again, you kind of start to learn that, but when he's staring at you and then just starts smiling and laughing out of nowhere, it's it's funny to see things that I haven't done around him, or different personality traits that, yep, he's mine, that's for sure. So it's almost like looking in a mirror some days.
Yeah. It definitely, I used to watch Big Bang Theory, and I was a big Sheldon Cooper fan, but he had no empathy whatsoever. He could not read people. Right. And having kids, I have two now. And it exposed how similar to Sheldon Cooper I was. I had no clue. I was so self-centered, and now having those two kids that really depend on you. Right. And my wife is tremendous. She does a great job, but still there's a lot of pressure in there, because they are always watching, and you do have to, without them telling you, figuring out how they're feeling. And so you have to spend time, and you have to be in touch with them, so that you can be able to help them the best that they need.
Yeah. And that's sometimes I've felt like, you know, catching myself in coach mode. Like there's always a teachable moment. Like he's 3 months old.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to teach him patience when he's hungry. Like there's gonna be plenty of moments for that later. So like just feed him, you know, like just try to check myself and again, kind of have some of that empathy where it's like, no, you can be patient.
Yeah. Face some adversity here. Count it all joy.
Exactly. And whereas like he's 3 months, all he knows is belly full or belly empty, cry or not cry.
Yeah. That's true.
So
that's true.
That's been a fun kind of check myself.
Yeah, that's good. Well, thank you so much, Coach. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
It's been great. Yeah.